The chemical makeup of fear in the human brain. This is not a definitive thing, this is just my personal research log. So, the ADHD has a problem with brain, has a problem with producing choline. Now, my ADHD brain came from heavy metal poisoning, which interferes in the reception of choline. But not just tetralead heavy metal, also cadmium, also mercury, also probably every heavy metal known to fucking man, if I had to guess. It wouldn't surprise me. But we're going to talk about the chemical biology of fear and how the test I was given was rigged from the beginning. The first thing about this rigged test is ADHD people can't function under pressure. That is why I took everything as a joke. And if you look back at all the videos I did, I took everything as a joke because I can't function under pressure. The entire ADHD brain just shuts down. Oops, my bad. That's called a seizure response, but we're going to talk about where that seizure response comes from. It comes from limited or lack of choline. Choline helps you focus. Choline, let's just go ahead and understand the importance of choline in the fear brain and how this entire thing was rigged for me to fail. Choline acts as a precursor to acetylcholine, a transmitter crucial for mental focus, memory regulating, parasympathetic nervous system, which helps manage stress and anxiety. Other key components linked to mental fortitude and stress management include serotonin, dopamine, cortisol, which regulate anxiety and the fear response. Choline is essential for producing acetylcholine, which helps reduce anxiety and keeps the brain focused, which is crucial for managing the fight, flight, freeze response. If you notice through this entire thing, I have been extremely emotionally dysregulated and mentally unwell. That's a choline thing. That's chemical. That's not me freaking out for no reason. That is biochemical. Serotonin and dopamine. Cholines to start methylation, which assists in balancing these neurotransmitters that regulate mood, calmness, and motivation. Betaine, choline, is converted into betaine, which acts as methyl donor in the brain, helping with the stress response regulation. Phosphatidyl-choline. This choline containing compound helps maintain cell membrane integrity, providing the stability required for proper cognitive function under stress. Proper cognitive function under stress. Does that sound familiar to anybody? Does that sound like when I was talking about when I go to do this thing, I just go and I can't function? Well, that's a seizure. That's a seizure response. And why would something seize up? Think about a car. Car with gas in the tank, and then there's no gas in the tank. Would you argue that the vehicle stopped moving is a form of seizure? Like it just seized up and stopped working, potentially because it doesn't have gas. It doesn't have the chemicals to move forward. And this isn't ranting and raving. I'm going to be 1,000,000% certain. If you gave any one of these filthy, disgusting church leaders the same chemical cocktail of heavy metals these bastards gave me, and then they had an ADHD brain, and you reduced their choline to an insane level, their courage response would be gone. And they couldn't be brave for shit. Now, here's the problem with this. It's ego perception. You tell somebody this, and then they go, I'm going to do all this shit to me, and then I'm going to prove I'm going to be brave. No, you're not trying to prove you're being brave. You're not even in a situation where you're going to be scared because you're not even focusing on the fear. You're focusing on proving others wrong. You're not actually thinking about the fear. It's when you're introduced and face the fear directly. And you don't have choline, the seize up response happens. Now we're going to talk about Carrie Fisher real quick. Carrie Fisher, Princess Leia, from Star Wars. And you might go, Bobby, what does that have to do with anything? Depression seizures. Carrie Fisher's brain would fill up with depression chemicals. This isn't a joke. And the only way to fix it was through shock therapy. They had to fry her brain to get it to work again. The cold shock therapy I did when I was seizing up and I couldn't fucking move is akin to that. It is a therapy they no longer use for treatment of extreme fear or phobia because they believe it could be harmful because of the extreme violent reaction that comes from it. Remember, like I said, when I hit the water, I was fucking splashing and freaking out. Now, nobody really cares about that, but that's important because that is breaking a seizure response in the brain. That is breaking a seizure response in the brain. It is the same thing as an electrical shock therapy, because what the electrical shock therapy does is reset the brain. The freezing cold water does the same thing to the brain. So I did research on the chemical imbalance of fear. And we're going to talk about how courage is actually a chemical thing, and it has little to jack shit to do with anything else these people claim. Mental fortitude, force your way through it, push your way through it, none of it works. None of it works. And they're going to tell you it does, because they themselves don't actually understand the true process of what's going on. The only thing they know is they do things that seemingly are courageous, but the fact of the matter is 90% of the time they're not even processing the fear to begin with. They're not processing what could happen to begin with. They're not processing how it could all go wrong to begin with. Yep. So epibioactives. Epigenetics active bioactives are dietary compounds such as curcumin, or cumin, sulforaphane, and resveratrol, and polyphenols that can modulate gene expression and reverse abnormal gene activation without change in the DNA sequence, while connecting these compounds to the psychological concept of courage is not standard scientific term. Bioactives play a crucial role in improving overall health, increasing the resilience to stress, reducing inflammation, and potential modulating the epigenetic mechanism of fear. You might go, Bobby, regulating fear, is that the same as being courageous? I'm going to argue yes, because if you turn the fear up to 1,000,000, you get a phobias. And I want to talk about how ridiculous a phobias can be. You can be afraid of riding in an elevator. You can be afraid of a duck looking at you and seize up and stop working, because the brain just dumps massive amounts of fear into your psychology, and then it causes the fear seizure response. It wasn't a fight, flight, fawn response I was experiencing. That's why none of the breathe through it worked. That's why none of the work through it worked. Move through it worked. It was a complete destruction of the courage circuit in my brain. And then people going, be brave. I ask any church leader, drain a car of all of its gas and all the gas in the engine, and then drive that car. And no bullshit, no pushing it, no moving it in any other way. Drive that car with no gas in it. You can't do it. And right now your ego brain is screaming, it can do it. No, it can't. Because the fuel isn't there, just like the fuel for courage in my brain wasn't there, because you guys put heavy metals in it that block the acetylcholine receptors. This is the definition of being a bastard. This is the definition of somebody that has no agency or even comprehending what they did to somebody does. Key connections between bioactives and resilience. Hear the word resilience. What's that sound like? Perseverance. Perseverance and resilience is a biochemical reaction in the brain. Stress reduction in brain health. Bioactive agents can help manage the impact of toxic stress in certain compounds like those in leafy greens and turmeric, supporting healthy gene expression and lowering inflammation. The problem with turmeric is it actually has lead in it. There's little to no real turmeric sources that don't have heavy metals in them. Epigenetic of fear. Research into fear conditions shows that epigenetic changes are involved in memory formation and fear responses, suggesting that modifying these mechanisms may affect behavioral traits. Can't imagine what that sentence means. Resilience of epifood. Certain pyrotechnic chemicals found in plant food act as methylene adaptogens, helping the body adapt to stressors and potentially lowering the epigenetic rage, which contributes to overall vigor. Vigor, I would argue, is a chunk of courage because it's often mentioned hand in hand. Metabolic and physical strength. Bioactives are often being studied for their ability to combat cancer related to changes, support physical health, with the studies showing they help minimize muscle wasting and boost physical energy. Scientific context. Mechanisms. These compounds, often found in berries, nuts, green tea, and crucifer vegetables, act as dimmer switches for genes. They influence DNA methylation and histone modification, which can inhibit the expression of harmful genes or enhance protective ones. Nutritional epigenetic aims to use these compounds to reverse harmful epigenetic changes linked to disease. I don't know what this epigenetic shit is. The only thing I know is it completely confirms my theory that my cowardice was not a physical trait, but a chemical one. And this is the thing, I can't find it now, and it's really getting on my nerves right fucking now. Because with the low CHO line, there were a series of vitamins that are reduced because of the way the ADHD brain functions that all point to courage. They all point to courage and the lack thereof, or the inability to even process things that scare you, which is funny because I've always had that problem. This is something that will bug me about this test for all of time. Is it a fair test of courage to give somebody an already terrifying task to complete, and then also biochemically alter their psychology using heavy metals and poisons and all types of shit, and pressure? And we're going to talk about constantly being under surveillance by the SCMC is an outside interference that Alien Mummy God said himself would not interfere, but it causes pressure. When you are being watched, you are under constant anxiety. This is a 1984 scenario that is described. This is why in 1984 that guy goes to the corner of his room and writes "Down with Big Brother, down with Big Brother, down with Big Brother," because he cannot handle being under surveillance forever. And I would argue nobody can. Well, outside of the president of this church, because you're actually under 24-hour surveillance out there, but because it means acting in certain ways. It means dealing with the constant anxiety of being watched. And even animals in the wild have a sixth sense for when they're being watched, and they react to it. They know they're being watched. This is an introduction into the fear mind. And when you're in the constant fear brain and you're constantly producing massive amounts of cortisol and your CHO line is low, it becomes impossible to become courageous. And I guarantee you, once again, if you did this entire thing to one of the church leaders without them knowing, and they could not know, they could not be aware that you are poisoning them with heavy metals and you're reducing their CHO line deliberately, even the bravest member of their church, this includes Blondie or any of them for that matter, the chemical process for courage would not be there when they needed it, and what you would get is the same response that I had when I seized up. Fear seizing. I believe is a real thing, and I believe it's mistaken for the fawn response. And I believe that is one of the biggest and most fucked up things about this entire event. Thank you.